Okay, welcome everyone to the Finance Committee meeting. Today's Monday, April 5th, 2021. The time is 7 p.m. We're broadcasting with Whitman Hanson Community Access virtually. We do have meeting minutes. We do have an agenda that was emailed in advance as well. I will just take a minute and go over the agenda for tonight's meeting. We do have 3 sets of meeting minutes that we would like to see if we can take and act on. Reserve fund stands at $37,321.20. Public forum is temporarily suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic. If someone wishes to contact the Finance Committee, they can certainly email at randerson@whitman/ma.gov. So under new business, we're going to continue our discussion on the warrant. Also, we have with us Bob Curran, Facilities Manager, to talk about lines within Article 2 that fall under his jurisdiction as Facilities Manager. Under old business, we have budget, subcommittee reports, Whitman Hanson Regional School District assessment, non-mandated busing, and the Board of Selectmen joint meeting agenda on here as well. So other business communications, we had one email to the committee from Dennis Smith and the town administrator and accountant updates if we do in fact get Ken here as well. So the upcoming meetings are scheduled. Next week is posted for 4/12. And then 4/13 with the Board of Selectmen is a Tuesday. And then we have 2 other Monday meetings, 4/19 and 4/27, sorry. Actually it's 4/26, that's been corrected. So with that, I would suggest we take the meeting minutes to start, but since we have Bob Curran here, Bob, are you expecting anyone else to join you in your budget presentation? We just don't want to get jammed up with any
No.
issue with a posting. No.
No.
Okay. All right. And if the committee is amenable, then we'll move right to Bob Bob, the lines within Article 2 that fall under the Facilities Manager. Do you have an Article 2 in front of you?
I do.
Can you share the Article 2 because of the issue with the emails?
Okay.
Thank you.
John, can you share the Article 2? So everybody should get a new Article 2 from Ken, which is now dated 3/25/21. Is that correct? Okay. So we're looking for lines 91 through 97 and 99, right? So
Thank you, John.
91. Thank you, John. So am I correct, Bob, that line 91 would be the first one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just so you know, I'll know, this is kind of a new thing for me that I'm going to be looking after the custodian line item. The town administrator asked that I look over that. So I do have all the numbers from last year, so I could review all that. And then 97 is the maintenance technician. And again, Lincoln has asked me to look after him. And now the maintenance technician now reports to me. Previous town administrator wanted him to report directly to him. So that's a change that I think will serve us all well.
Okay, so these lines were provided by the assistant town administrator prior to Lincoln's arrival. Is that correct, Bob? Correct.
They've always been here on Article 2, but the things I had charge of was only in the past was just reporting on my own. So these items or these line items have been directed for me to watch over. So starting now, that's what I will be doing.
Okay, So for custodial maintenance, then you're kind of familiar with the budget? Or are you still kind of hitting
Well,
it?
I am familiar with the custodial line item, and I do know that there's the basic line item, and then there's some extra items due to COVID. And I do have all the information from the accountant's office.
Okay, so some custodial expenses have been paid for this particular year with CARES Act, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay, there's Ken. So Ken, can you just confirm that the budget for the custodial was submitted in advance of Lincoln's arrival by the former assistant town administrator? Is that where this came from?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. So just to catch you up, Bob, just kind of run down, and take questions if the committee has any regarding his new charge as a facilities manager with the responsibility of these Article 2 line items. So is there anything else you want to present, Bob, or you want me to open it up to the board for questions?
I'm not sure if you have direct questions regarding those specific line items. I don't necessarily know what the questions could be other than, the salary items. But as far as the maintenance technician, we could go over what his tasks are. And I'm taking over, watching after what his tasks, whatever his projects are.
Okay,
So I
so how many employees are in this custodial line?
Well, there's just one. It's Todd DeCudo.
Okay. So he is the maintenance technician as well? Is that?
No,
correct?
the maintenance technician is a separate employee that works on Fridays and Saturdays.
So there's two then?
Yeah, well, there's two. There's a maintenance technician and there's custodian.
Okay. All right, does anybody on the board have any questions in regard to lines 91 to 97 that really haven't been, reviewed prior to this meeting, I guess, for the committee? Welcome, Ralph, as well. I see that you're on now.
Rick, I have a
Okay.
quick question.
Go ahead, Rosemary.
It's Kathleen.
Oh, Kathleen, sorry.
Unless,
Go
I
ahead.
know we look a lot alike.
No, I'm just doing a listening because I can't see everybody at once.
Yeah. Bob, when you said that there are expenses associated with COVID, are we going to see that here in these line items?
No, the accountant has record of all that, but no, they're not in these line items. I think the additional custodial services may be in there. Ken, you will have the answer to that?
I can answer that. I mean, no. So,
No, okay.
so the only, so this is line 91 is Todd's salary,
Mhm.
who is the custodian for Town Hall, Council on Aging, the police, and the library, police station and the library. 93 is some additional, it's expenses, additional custodial expenses. That overtime line is, just as it says, for callback. There will be, just so the committee knows, there will be a slight increase in the 95 line item because we recently, unfortunately, discovered termite damage at Town Hall. So there'll be some increase there to control that termite problem. Very slight increase, a few $1,000s, but just FYI from this, there will be a slight increase. The elevator lift maintenance, I think, is relatively self-explanatory. And as Bob said, the maintenance technician is a separate employee Friday, Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rick, I had a question.
Go ahead.
So I guess Lincoln on line 93, so additional custodial services. So that's not any kind of salary. Those are just expenses. That's not anybody's pay. Is that correct?
Some of that was used for overtime during COVID. So So some of it is in fact overtime.
All
But
right,
it is
'cause
not
it's-
it is not a separate employee. There are only 2 employees in these lines.
And the callback overtime is basically maybe, well, that's, so our salary there is actually, if you put them all together, that's a good chunk of money there that we're spending on that.
That's correct. Not all of it. I'm sorry, I don't have the expended in front of me. I can find it so far this year. Not all of it will likely be expended. It's sort of an upper limit. But I know historically it has not been entirely expended.
Okay, thank you.
So it is not, it's no guarantee, right?
Yep.
Unlike certain other line items
Right.
in the budget.
Okay, and I just had another quick question, Bob, regarding line number 99, facilities manager. So historically, and since that position was created, the facilities manager provided a report, I guess, of all the town buildings and the maintenance issues upcoming and completed. Is that something that we can expect to get this fiscal year?
I think I spent a lot of time on the reports and through discussions with the past town administrator, he thought that we would just sit down and go over things, everything that was done. I'm perfectly happy to go over with this committee some of the items that have been completed and some of the things I'm working on. But to do an actual report, I think especially this year where a lot of my time was spent on COVID issues, I don't think it's necessary. But I will talk with Lincoln about exactly what he expects from me at the end of the year.
Okay, well, I guess there was some confusion on whether or not the facilities manager report was actually prepared for the capital committee to keep them apprised of maintenance issues that are upcoming or long-term and the position or the condition of our town-owned buildings. So I think that the report, I certainly don't think it's useless. I think it had an enormous value when it was provided. I guess
if I can
the
interrupt,
question was, go ahead, Bob.
yeah, just so you know, what the normal report was an ongoing list of everything that was done. And we did a 5-year projection and all that. What I can tell you is that all that is going to change starting the end of this month. I am going to visit each building and catalog all the equipment in each building and try to get a year that it was installed so that we can get some kind of a track record, and we'll build a spreadsheet for that. Unfortunately, I've got all that information, but we haven't had time to compile it just because of the workload just in the building department. But this, I'm going to have some time available to spend a lot more of my free time doing this kind of thing. So starting at the end of the month, this will all be built. And I think by next year, we should have something that we can pass on to the next facilities manager that will be hugely helpful.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm not sure what the previous reporting was, but if there's something specific that the committee wants to see, I'm happy to get it. So,
Well, I think maybe that the facilities manager could provide you with a couple of years of the reports that were presented to the capital committee and to the finance committee. So maybe you'll have an idea of what the report entailed and whether or not you think it's something that has value, I guess. I think that would be the best thing if you could see what we used to get for information. But, it's been, probably 2 years, right, Bob, since we.
I did prepare one last year for Frank. I can look to see if I sent that to you.
Okay, and maybe you could forward it to Lincoln so that
Yeah, absolutely.
he can determine if it has value, I guess. Okay, so I guess, my point was that the initial reason that the report was provided was for the capital committee to keep apprised of the current situation. And then at some point, it became a report for the town administrator. So like I said, I guess our new town administrator could determine who best would benefit by getting that information. So that's all I had on that. Anybody else? Anything for Bob? Any other lines within Article
sorry.
2? Go ahead.
It's Rosemary. I had a question. You had said the workload. Have you started implementing the software?
Yes,
Yes, okay. Is
yes,
that
we've got it up and running, and everybody can apply for a building permit, electrical and plumbing permits online now.
And
And
is
that's
that-
been a great deal of fun getting that set up, but it's working really well.
Oh, great. And I think they had mentioned that that would help with our detecting our new growth or keeping that on track. Is that?
Yeah,
is
I
that
think
true?
that, yeah, and just so you know, I think the new growth was pretty much what I expected it to be, just based on the workload in the building department. And I can see that kind of slowing down a little bit, so get ready.
Okay.
But I think everybody here, right now, we're doing more permits than we have in the last 7 years.
Oh,
And that
wonderful.
continues right now. We do have some big projects that you see around town, but we've got an awful lot of small projects that don't seem to add a whole lot of new growth. The permit count is even more right now than this time last year. So things are going really well, and the online permitting is making a huge difference.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, anything else for Bob? All right, Bob, we thank you very much for coming into the meeting, and, obviously, these aren't lines that you're, all that familiar with yet, and we, anything that we can do to help you in your new role, I guess, with overseeing this department.
Yeah, and I appreciate all your support. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks, Bob.
thanks,
Take care.
Bob. All right, so going back to the agenda, if we wanted, is anybody not prepared to review the meeting minutes of March 15th, 22nd, or 29th? Does anybody need more time?
No. I'm
I
not.
know Rosemary, as well as I, had a problem logging on to email because of the whole password changing thing. I was able to get some help from our IT, Josh McNeil helped me back in. And so I am back on the email, but if you don't have access to email, obviously you wouldn't have access to the meeting minutes. So,
I can abstain for the meetings. They're recorded, so.
okay.
it'd be fine.
So does anybody else need more time? Because we are just a little bit behind, and Samantha did, provide the 3 meeting minutes, so. All right, so looking at March 15th, starting on page 394. The only one absent from this meeting was John Noon. So at the beginning at 7 o'clock, we had our town administrator presenting the lines within the town administrator and board of selectmen budget. So that was the beginning of the meeting, was the review on that page. Anybody, any edits on that page? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to page 395. Again, going line by line from line 8 to line 259 on that page. Anything to edit, add, or delete? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to page 396. At this point in the meeting, Ken was talking about the line item 31. The warrant, Lincoln was given a discussion on that. Further down, we had comments from Dave Cadero and John Galvin and Kathleen Otina. And at the end paragraph, Lincoln was in discussion with the committee on the audit.
Mhm.
Any questions, comments, additions, deletions? Okay, seeing none, on to the final page, on page 397. The first paragraph, were a discussion with Whitman Hanson and deregionalization. And then there were further discussions, motions, and a final vote, and the meeting adjourned at 8:17. So in the first paragraph, 3 lines from the bottom is just one letter missing in that sentence that says his position that the audit wouldn't be conducted in and I think you need the word "a" timeframe,
Mm.
just missing that word. Samantha, did you get that?
Yep.
Okay, anybody else on that page? Kathleen?
Under the next paragraph where it says discussion, and Mr. Cudero, I think the word stated that the warrant article is closed.
Okay, Dave, would you concur with that word to be inserted in that sentence?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of March 15th as amended.
I move the minutes.
And we have a second by
Chuck,
I'll second.
Ralph. Thank you, Ralph. Okay, further discussion. Roll call vote, John Noon,
Abstain.
Kathleen,
Yes,
John Galvin,
Yes.
Chuck,
yes,
Dave,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Abstain.
and I'll vote yes. Okay, thank you very much. The next meeting minutes are from March 22nd, starting on page 398. So the meeting called to order, and the discussion out of the gate was to table the meeting minutes for March 1st and March 8th. Then we just discussed the communication from the district. And we, at the end of that paragraph, a discussion about per capita spending. And that is the limit on page 398. Anything to edit, delete, add? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the next page, which is 399. The discussion continued with our town administrator talking about a level service budget. Then we went into discussions of town departments and the discussions for our town administrator to get feedback from meetings that we had with department budget manager. So we went through the assessors, the treasurer collector, and the technology budget on page 399.
Yep.
Anything in the meeting minute draft that needs to be corrected? John New.
On page 399, under the technology budget, I basically agreed that there was a need for the additional technology position. And what I suggested was, if the assistant town administrator position could be combined with that position, I might support it. But otherwise, I would not support the assistant town administrator position. And I did not bring up the former town administrator as a possibility filling that role.
Oh, okay. So you're looking to strike the sentence that starts with, after reviewing the recording of the previous meeting, he understands that the concern regarding $65,000 salary line to support an assistant town administrator and offered the suggestion that perhaps Frank Lynham in his role.
Well, I'm
would you
sorry.
like to remove
I think
that?
you just said he had done it in the past, but not that he should do it in the future. I think he had said similar to what Frank Lyman had done in the past.
Right, I
something-
do remember that.
He didn't
almost
recommend that
verbatim.
it's something.
So John, could you offer an alternative that you would like to see in there?
That's additional.
So just for everybody and the fact that we do take the time to make sure that our meeting minutes are the way that they happened. If you do find something in the meeting minutes and you take exception with it, or you'd like to change it, in preparation for the meeting, if you could draft an alternative sentence that we could, vote, and that way, we're not taking a lot of time while you figure out what you want to say. You know what I mean, John?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, just striking a few words and adding another couple, but if you want to change the the paragraph, you know, like I said, we just have to have some kind of an alternative. Is there anything you can suggest?
Supported an assistant town administrator in combination with a second technology position, period. And leave out any discussion about Mr. Lineman.
Okay. Samantha, did you get that?
I didn't.
Working on it.
Oh, good. Sorry, not to mean to rush you. All right, well, Samantha's working on that and she will probably read back what she has for your approval, John. Is there anything else on page 399 that anybody wants to amend?
No.
Okay, Samantha, if you need more time, I'll go to page 400. All right, so on page 400, we're talking about the clerk's budget, then we talked about the facilities budget and the Whitman Police Department budget, the Whitman Fire Department budget, the inspectional services budget, the Department of Public Work budget, and the water sewer budget. So again, these were all discussions that we reviewed our meetings with the budget managers for the benefit of our new town administrator. Does anybody have anything that they wish to add or delete or change within the page 400?
Just,
Kathleen,
under the Whitman Police Department budget, the very last word, which says, Mr. Noon was correct and that negotiations will be held later due to change in the labor. I don't think reorientations, I don't know, I don't have a suggestion, but reorientations doesn't make sense to me.
collective bargaining negotiations.
Maybe it's negotiations.
John, would you say that that's what you? Oh,
No, it was
oh,
Lincoln
this
who
is,
actually made the
okay, so
statement.
Lincoln. This
Just
was
con-
Lincoln's statement. So Lincoln, that last sentence says, Mr. Heineman stated that Mr. Noon was correct and that negotiations will be held later due to change in the labor reorientation. So would you say that the sentence could end with contract negotiations?
I would think so. Yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay.
without reviewing the video, I'm not
Sorry to put you on the
Okay.
spot like that.
all
but
right,
that doesn't-
precisely sure, but just a moment.
That makes
The
much more
issue-
That would
sense.
make sense.
The issue there is that the police union is discussing possibly changing their orientation of which union represents them. So I think that's more along that line, in that our negotiations were being delayed because the union was reorientating their allegiance or whatever union they're
Yeah, or
represent them.
perhaps the way to say it would be that the police employees, the police union employees are considering a change in their union affiliation.
Affiliation.
So changing the labor affiliation may be a better word.
Affiliation, I think, would be the best way to say.
Okay.
So I'm sorry to take you off page 400, 399, Samantha, but,
I'm caught up.
oh, great. Could you read back on page 399 for the benefit of John Noon, how that sentence now reads?
Sure. Mr. Newman agreed that there is a need for the additional technology position, period. Additionally, he would support the role of the assistant town administrator if it was combined with the additional technology position.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, John. So now we're caught up with page 400 and changing the last word to affiliation instead of reorientation. Good with that one? All
Yes.
right, thank you. Anybody else on page 400? Okay, fine. On page 401, we moved on to the Health Department budget, Council on Aging, Veterans Department, Library budget, Recreation budget. And then there was a report, subcommittee report from John Galvin. Anything there that needs to be changed on page 401?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to be clear. in that sentence regarding the police, I think I apologize. I just found it here. Mr. Heineman stated that Mr. Noon was correct and that negotiations will be held later due to a possible change in the labor affiliation. I don't want to prejudge what may happen with the election that will happen in the future.
Okay.
So
Thank you, and
thank you.
that's why I do provide you with a copy of the draft
Yep.
meeting minutes in case that something.
And
should come
I
up.
apologize. I didn't get a chance to review them earlier. Yep.
No
Thank you.
worries. All right, so we're adding another adjective, I guess, Samantha, on this third paragraph, page 400.
All set.
Thank you. Okay, 401, were we good? The final page is 402, and the discussion was still in the discussion of the subcommittee report by Mr. Galvin. And then we were looking to the town administrator to provide a draft of the town meeting. And the American Rescue Plan was discussed. And at the end was a report from Dave Cadero regarding the Building Facilities Capital Expenditure Committee. Is there anything, the meeting adjourned at 8:49 at the bottom, and that would complete this meeting minutes. Anything on page 402? Kathleen?
I'm sorry that I missed that we moved off page 401 because at the bottom of page 401, where it said Mr. Galvin encouraged Miss Otina, and I think it's to watch the YouTube recording, not to, so change the word was, fourth line from the bottom, to watch. And I did.
I got it.
Got it, great. Okay, so then that's it on page 401, and then like 402 is then anything on that page. I will then entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of March 22nd as amended.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Okay, roll call, John New.
Yes.
Kathleen,
yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Abstain.
and abstain. Okay, and then I vote yes. Thank you very much. And the final meeting minutes, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pages on the dated March 29th. Meeting called to order at 7 o'clock. We reviewed and approved the meeting minutes from March 1st, March 8th. And then under discussions, we had the new veterans agent come in to give a report. That's on page 403, the first page of the meeting minutes. Anything to amend? Seeing none, we'll move to the second page, which is page 404. We were still talking with the veterans agent. At the top, then a report from Mr. Cadero regarding the Building Facility Capital Committee. Then we moved into discussion of Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. And then we went on to do a high-level overview of the draft warrant, beginning with Article P1 and ending with Article 9 on page 404. So the only thing I could suggest on this page is after the first 2 sentences, there should be probably a reference to the fact that Ms. Lansing left the meeting. So I suggest as a sentence for after Ms. Lansing explained that in reviewing previous spending for the line item, the most that has been spent is $211,000. And then possibly to say, after being recognized for her presentation, Ms. Lansing left the meeting at 7:20 p.m. Perhaps. Samantha, is that all right?
I'll add something on. Yep.
Thank you. It just goes right into another discussion and kind of leaves it hanging that she's still here. Anything else on page 404?
Well, Rick, at the top, it does show that she departed. If you look where non-members are, it's 7:13 to 7:20. Again, it doesn't say that. We don't know when 7:20 is, so I'll just change it.
Okay, you could probably lose the first reference and then just Yeah, I see it now, non-members, and then the time she was here. Maybe just lose the times in the first page and just make a mention that she left in the page 404. I just think it's a little clearer. Is that all right? Is that all right with everyone?
Yep.
Thank you. Page 405. We're discussing appropriations and the possibility that free cash be involved. Article 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 were reviewed on that page 405. Anything to add, delete, or change? Okay. And the final page is 406. Again, we're talking about line articles within the warrant, and we talked about Article 23 all the way to Article 31. And the meeting adjourned at 8:10. A motion was made to adjourn. Anything to change on that page? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the March 29th meeting minutes as amended.
I move to accept the minutes.
Second,
We have a second. Okay, further discussion, roll call vote, John New,
yes.
Kathleen,
Yes,
John Galvin,
Abstain.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Abstain.
and I'll vote yes as well. Okay, thank you all for getting through those meeting minutes. And back to the agenda. So we covered the facilities manager. On our old business, we have the budget. So I guess what's the will of the committee? We are still waiting for a final draft of Article 2. Obviously, we won't have that till just prior to the meeting with the Board of Selectmen. We could, as time allows, review, if the committee is prepared to review the warrant and start voting recommendations for warrant articles. I would suggest that maybe we don't vote any of the capital articles. Dave, with respect to the capital committee, you are meeting this week. So would you expect to have recommendations for the finance committee next week?
Yeah, our meeting is scheduled for Thursday. We intend to hopefully vote all articles, capital articles. Anyone on this committee is invited to attend if they'd like. Just shoot me an email.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dave. All right, so we could, like I said, then go into the warrant. Do we want to put a copy up, or is that the will of the committee? John Galvin.
Yeah, I'm wondering why we would entertain reviewing the warrant that hasn't been officially signed by the Board of Selectmen. It's still a draft warrant.
That's fine with me. If this is premature, I am only concerned about our schedule. If you look at the bottom of the agenda, you will see that there are only 3 meetings left to vote 400 line items within Article 2 and everything that's on the annual and special town meeting warrant. So it's fine. If the committee feels that we need more time, I'm certainly on board. Rosemary.
I would agree with you to wait for all capital committee items, as that's what it indicates in the finance committee handbook. We shouldn't be considering capital committee items that haven't been approved by the capital committee. But we can approve things for, I mean, I wonder why we're waiting for the Board of Selectmen. If they don't put it on the warrant after we voted for it or not, that, that's theirs. They can pull it off if they choose. Our recommendations or not wouldn't make a difference, right?
Well, I guess if something gets amended or, passed over or changed prior to town meeting, we can always revote, which is an option. My hope is that, we have a full roster too. I really like to see the votes add up to the 9 members of the committee, however they add up. So I don't know how much time we would save by starting the review and voting recommendations on articles that could possibly be changed before the Board of Selectmen accepts as final the warrant, or we're also skipping over the capital warrant articles as well. So I'm fine either way. John New.
I had some clarifications I'd like to get on 3 of the articles. I don't know whether to hold off at this point, but I'm just wondering, are we going to take these up with the selectmen when we meet on the 13th? Or is it strictly going to be Article 2?
Oh, as far as I'm concerned, with the meeting with the Board of Selectmen, everything that's on our agenda is on the joint agenda. So if there is a question that you have on any of the warrant articles, I would suggest we could do that tonight. Lincoln is here, has a pretty good handle on what's on the warrant. Do you want to specifically say which article you had a question on?
Well, the first one was Article 23. And I guess the question is, why isn't there a finance committee representative on a community preservation commission?
Yeah, so the bylaw is certainly, so as long as let me back up. The state law requires that the Community Preservation Committee, when it's set up, have the planning board member designated by the board, a conservation commission member designated by the commission, and someone from the housing authority designated by the authority, and the historical commission and the recreation commission. So the state law requires that. The committee could have any number of other people that the town bylaws, so chose, right? So if the town meeting chose to add anyone beyond that, that's up to town meeting. There's no, I'm pretty familiar with, I'd say the composition of a good 8 to 10 community preservation committees throughout various municipalities, and there's none that I'm aware of that includes a finance committee or advisory committee member, but that's not to say that it couldn't. It would just be, yeah. I mean, it would be up to town meeting, right? What the bylaws said.
Okay, all right. That answer your question, John?
Well, John has, I guess,
Yeah, I thought it was in our bylaws that finance committee members cannot sit on another committee aside from the capital committee. They could only be like an ad hoc committee, like similar to, like the building school committee that I'm sitting on, or the regional agreement committee that Rick was sitting on. I'm pretty sure that's in the bylaws that a finance committee member cannot sit on another full-fledged committee, but I could be wrong. I heard that somewhere. I thought that was the case.
And perhaps maybe I could offer too, much the same as the CARES Act, purposefully excluded someone from the finance committee, so not to confuse a budgetary issue with a COVID reimbursable. I don't know. Could there be a reason
You would think
within
you'd
that?
want finance. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But that was simply I'm just offering that as a possibility. Go ahead, Rosemary.
I would think that either you would want somebody from capital or finance that had an idea of how to spend the CARES Act money, on things that would apply to CARES Act, but things that we're also looking to do in our long-term plan.
Well, I
So-
didn't really want to open the Pandora's box talking about CARES Act. I was just kind of using it as an analogy.
I'm not talking about CARES Act. I'm talking about the Community Preservation Act, as it's a percentage of our taxes, where we pay taxes towards it.
Okay.
So,
All right,
Mr.
John,
Chairman,
go ahead, Lincoln.
I'm sorry, just as Mr. Galvin brings up a good point, and I actually did not recall that either, but he is correct, just as a point of information, that that the bylaw that the town's bylaws say of the Finance Committee, no member of which shall hold any other elective town office or be a member of any other committee, except that a member may be appointed to a building or facilities committee with the approval of the town moderator and board of selectmen. So just as a point of information.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Lincoln. So, all right, so John Noon, are you satisfied with the answer to that?
And
Or-
Link just answered the second question I had, which was the concern about how a member of the Finance Committee could be appointed to the Capital Committee. And the answer obviously is selectmen and the moderator select that person. And my question was going to be, shouldn't it just be the moderator? But we've got the answer to that. And lastly, on Article 28, should that be amended? Since it sounds like, even though I might not be a fan of adding assistant administrator, should there be a provision in that article for the assistant town administrator to also be excluded from necessarily living in Whitman?
Lincoln?
It could be, it's up to the Board of Selectmen, obviously, as to whether or not an assistant town administrator would or would not be appointed to any committee. I don't believe in their role as assistant town administrator, any prior assistant town administrator has been appointed to a committee, but it's a good point, well taken. And, I'll add it. I'm certainly not opposed to adding it.
Well, I think that John that's a very good point, because in the event, the unfortunate event that the town administrator should have to take a lengthy leave of absence due to health or something else, that the assistant town administrator would then be filling in and then would be subject to the provisions of the residency requirement. So I think it's a good consideration. Yeah.
I was not wishing ill upon you.
No, neither am I.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Good pickup there, John.
Okay, very good. Anything else, John? Or anybody else in?
That's the only immediate questions I had. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I guess we could, if anybody else has a outstanding question on any specific article, then we won't take the time to start reviewing the warrant until we have a copy from, that's going to be the one presented at town meeting. Rosemary, you remuted yourself.
So I had a question. It was asked at a selectmen's meeting with the school. It was asked about an override, and I know we have an override committee. They had asked if we had considered an override. And I know in the beginning we had said that the committee would reconvene to determine that, I believe. I think earlier in the year I asked, with COVID and the Madden, if we went over the Madden recommendations for any the departments, would we be considering the override, an override for those amounts? And there was the mention of reconvening the override committee. And is that not a consideration as we are going over those Madden recommendations?
So I guess the question is directed at Lincoln. Is that correct, Rosemary?
So I guess it's directed at me.
guess so.
So that,
Or anyone on the committee?
well, I can give a shot at it. So I think the consensus seems pretty clear to me this year that there is not a desire on the part of any majority of citizens or members of any committee that this year is an opportune time for an override. Tell me if this committee feels differently, but I certainly don't feel like it's an opportune time for an override attempt, but you know, if there's a different feeling from someone, I know I'd like to hear it. That said,
Okay.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think we diverted the responsibility for override when we made the override committee. The override committee was supposed to determine that. I believe a selectman put that back on the finance committee, not knowing that we had already created a committee to determine that. And we haven't heard from that committee. It has not been reconvened, so we just don't have an answer for him.
Yeah.
So I guess the question could go back to the Board of Selectmen is in fact that the override evaluation committee still a standing committee, or is it dissolved? I guess that would be the first question. And I guess informally, without taking a vote, is there anybody on the finance committee, for the benefit of Lincoln's information, that feels that we should be considering an override this fiscal year? Because I know I'm not.
I know I'm not.
I'm not.
I hadn't even considered it due to the fact that there was a committee that was meant to, so I hadn't evaluated things to that in that regard. It was just a question asked. I think what I had asked at the beginning of the year is if we went over those Madden recommendations, should we consider an override, as the Madden recommendations were meant to prevent an override? So again, since we're not taking the steps to prevent an override, how are we managing our budget? Are we cutting somewhere where we shouldn't? How are we doing that?
So can I just,
Lincoln go first, then Dave, then John. Go ahead, Lincoln.
if I could just provide a little more flavor on that. So and actually, I reread the Madden report in the last week again, I think for the fourth time, but just to clarify in my own mind what it speaks to. And as I'm sure probably the members of this committee recall, so what it specifically says is within that 2.5%, if town side budgets continue to increase at the 2.5% that they had typically been increasing, and the school assessment continued to increase at approximately the 5% increase that it had traditionally been increasing at, that an override would be necessary coming up soon. And the Madden report specifically said in fiscal year 2022. I think it says likely, but it specifically says fiscal year 2022. I as a preview for next week, I am sure that we can make this budget work with a level services budget without an override. And that's my intention to do that. And that's what this committee is going to see next week, is a essentially level services budget without an override. The big question mark is still what the school assessment will be. At the level it is certified at right now, that would require the use of a pretty significant amount of free cash. And that is something that we can do without an override. You know, this week there will be a school committee meeting, and it appears that there'll be some reconsideration of what that certified number is. But regardless, you know I am confident that we can make this work without an override this year. If that.
Okay, thank you, Lincoln. Dave.
Yep. So I just want to make a few clarifications in regards to what was said earlier by another member here. The override committee wasn't specific for an override to the schools. And it wasn't to prevent an override. It was just stated here that it was to prevent an override. That wasn't the goal of the Madden report. And then the Madden report recommended up to a town our size should be contributing an additional up to 5% to the assessment, which currently we have a placeholder greater than that. So why would we even consider an override for the schools if we're being beholden to if we're trying to behold to the recommendations in the Madden report, we're already there and exceeding that.
Okay, good point. Thank you, Dave. John Galvin was next, Rosemary, and then we'll go back to you.
Yeah, so the I was a member of the budget override committee, as you all know. we convened to evaluate a override, possibility of an override in fiscal 21. At that point, after all of the recommendations and the Madden report, at that time, we voted not to recommend an override. I think it was 8-1 or 9-1. I have not heard any discussions about reconvening that. I know, from what I understand, the committee is still in place and and right now really waiting for the results of the we're getting a report soon, hopefully, if I understand right, on a I can't think of the word of I'm sorry.
Strategic plan?
Thank you, sir. Strategic plan. And hopefully we should have that soon, I'm understanding. And at that point, I think the committee was going to be considered to reconvene and possibly reformat it in a different way and not be called a budget override committee, but kind of involving the strategic plan and implementing the strategic plan. But that's all I've heard.
Okay, all right, thank you, John. Rosemary?
Yes, just to make any corrections, I never recommended an override for the schools. It was anything that went over the Madden recommendations. Any department were we considering. Additionally, I did review my notes from the meeting, and we do not have minutes to confirm for the last meeting. Apparently, you did not reconvene your committee to accept minutes. So I did review my notes, and I went over the video to confirm them. And it was asked by Miss Byers if it was the total budget or the assessment at 5%. And he says it's the total budget in the meetings. And when you review how he applies in the town of Duxbury, he does the total budget 5%. So I'm a little confused, and I might have to review
Yeah,
the
you're going to have to
paperwork
review
again.
the
I'm
first
sorry,
5
I am
minutes.
not confused,
The
but I would
first
like
5
to
minutes.
review the paperwork, and we
Huh.
can review those minutes if everybody else disagrees, but
Okay.
I'm just
well, I
not
don't
seeing,
think, I
I'm
don't,
just not seeing what other, please, I'm
I don't,
speaking.
go
I'm
ahead.
I'm not seeing what everybody's saying in my own minutes, in the video, or in the application this Mr. Madden uses in his own town when he's applying his own methods. So using that, I have some questions.
Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Dave?
Just to go back to the Madden meetings, the override budget override committee meetings. Mr. Madden stated that, he was, when he spoke about Duxbury, he was not speaking on a regional school system that we have here. That might be some of the confusion there. And also during one of the meetings, the superintendent asked a very similar question during a meeting, stating that his question was whether or not 5% was toward a total budget or toward the assessment. And it was clarified that it was to the assessment.
Okay.
I actually recorded the.
Rosemary, please, I'm not finished. Can I finish?
Okay. Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, thank you. That's first.
Yeah.
So, and actually at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, he actually clarified himself again and said, it's his understanding that the 5% is to the assessment and not to the total budget. So anything different from that is a hearsay and a lie. So can we just move on?
And I would like you to give me the date of the Board of Selectmen meeting. He stated that, and we can review that same meeting that you're speaking of, because I did review it and I did not hear what you said. I heard Jeff actually reply, oh, we can work with that for the overall. So it is not hearsay. And if you could give me the date of the Board of Selectmen meeting where you claim that there is a clarification, please.
Well, I'll be as forthcoming as you are in your information. Google it.
Please
All right,
stop it.
I'm gonna
Please
end the
stop it.
debate. I'm
Can
gonna
you
end the
please
debate.
stop him?
Rosemary,
Stop.
Dave, I'm gonna end the debate. I think all the points have been made. I think it's very clear that we just got to get some more information. look back at the meeting minutes and find out what the parameters are, I guess, of the recommendations. But I think out of the report, the Madden report, there were specific recommendations that were presented to the Board of Selectmen, and there were definite decisions made by the Board of Selectmen on how to proceed. So I think that's already been established. So there's no doubt that the Madden report has value, but as it gets further away from our current situation, it loses some of the important aspects of it that we need to, as John alluded to, when we look at our strategic plan. So I think we're going to need more information. I think there's going to be a review of what was presented, and then, we obviously have a lot of work to do. So, but thank you all for your comments. And anybody else on anything on the budget, on the warrant?
A potentially dangerous question.
Go ahead,
Who's
Kathleen.
working on the strategic plan?
I can answer that. So the, not dangerous at all.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked. Not dangerous from my perspective. So it's a woman who's skilled and has done several of these over the years. Her name is Ann Donner. Just spoke with her again last week. And so she's working on it. And it is likely to be completed in July or August.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so looking into our old business subcommittee reports. So Dave, you already kind of gave the Building Facility Capital Expenditure Committee. Anything else that you want to say? You are meeting on Thursday. Anything
Yep,
further?
we're
on
meeting
that?
on Thursday. We're open the meeting to anyone here that wants to attend. And our anticipation is to vote on all capital articles. That's it.
What time, Dave?
5:30 on Thursday.
All right, so if anybody wants to join the meeting, I would suggest you send an email to Dave and he'll send you the link. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right. Regional Agreement Amendment Committee, nothing to report. Middle School Building Committee.
Nothing
John?
to report.
Okay. Whitman Hanson Regional School District Assessment, non-mandated busing. Kathleen, anything, communication from the district?
No communication other than they've posted a meeting for this Wednesday, and on the agenda, they're going to review the budget that they just voted. So it's a wait and see.
Stay tuned. Yes, I think it's important. Yeah. All right, and lastly, under old business, we have the Board of Selectmen joint meeting agenda. I do apologize for billing it as such. We are going to the Board of Selectmen meeting as invited, the Finance Committee. So I did forward the email from the Chairman Kowalski, who kind of mapped out the, I guess, the way the meeting is going to be structured. So I would suggest that if anybody, and what I would encourage is, if there's something that you want to present, just, find a place in the meeting that it best suits, so that the discussion isn't all over the place. As Chairman Kowalski stated, we're going to get a review of the budget from our town administrator. The chairman's going to open it up to the Board of Selectmen for questions, comments, and then turn it over to the Finance Committee for the same. So I would suggest that within the budget, if there's some question that you would like to raise, to prepare in advance, so that, the discussions aren't all over the place, I guess, So I would say that anything that's on our agenda right now would certainly be part of an agenda for a meeting with the Board of Selectmen. So if there's any questions about what is going to be discussed, I guess it's whatever any member of this committee feels is important in order for us to make recommendations to the voters at town meeting. Anybody, anything else on that meeting? It's scheduled for next Tuesday. I did post our committee for that meeting so that we are posted for next Monday and for next Tuesday. So perhaps Lincoln, and correct me if I'm wrong, you did say that perhaps a copy of the budget would be available prior to the joint meeting. Would it in fact be available for Monday's meeting?
It will be available prior to the meeting. I can't guarantee that it would be available for Monday's meeting.
Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding anything under old business? Okay, seeing none. Communications. Dennis Smith did send a communication regarding the bill from Brockton for water sewer and an unanticipated increase. Lincoln, do you want to speak to that or?
No, I don't. I think this letter speaks for itself, but I'm happy to take any questions about it or.
Okay. All right. Any questions regarding that? And I guess then segue right into anything else, Lincoln, that you have that you would like to present to the committee?
No, I don't think so, except that, so looking forward to next week's joint meeting. I mentioned to you, Mr. Chairman, I have a personal commitment. I apologize on Monday night, a week from tonight, so I won't be able to be here. But I know Ken is intending to be here and we'll be here. So, but happy to take any other questions. I think as we discussed a couple times tonight, the big outstanding question is what, if any, change may occur to the school's certified budget request. I think that's the big outstanding question regarding budget.
Okay, thank you. And no feedback from the money from the federal government and its possible
No.
uses?
So there are, the clarity I do have is that the U.S. Department of Treasury has 60 days to promulgate regulations that will dictate how we can spend those monies. So, and they have not done that yet, but their clock is ticking. So hopefully soon.
60 days from what date do you?
60 days from the passage of the act,
Okay,
which
all right, thank you.
I think we're at about 30. I think we're at about 30 days at this point.
Oh, okay. All right, Ken, accountant, anything to report? Information for the committee?
Nothing new for tonight. Nope.
Okay, great, thank you. Then we will meet again next Monday. We will have some feedback from the capital committee, so we'll at least be able to delve into the warrant articles that deal with capital projects and recommendations from the committee. All right, does anybody have anything that is not on the agenda that they would like to bring up? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we
Second
got a
motion.
motion and a second. All right, John Noon,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
John Galvin,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Rosemary,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. All right, thank you all for tuning in and your comments, and we look forward to getting together again in a week. Thank you to Lincoln and to Ken, Samantha, and Whitman Hanson Community Access. We'll have a safe week.
Take it
Thank
easy.
you all.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank-
Okay.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
All right.